send an other song.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 618. It's Mike Matthews broadcasting from the last place on earth located somewhere in Podcastro Valley, California. Today, Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, John Deere the engineer, plus the return of the segment, the MIKELOPEDIA INSANICA, where we look at some very intriguing travel news. And we got a piece of travel news that has to do with something really bizarre that trees are doing. Mike's Daily Podcast. And last show, we talked a lot about e-cigarettes, which I am eschewing. Mike's Daily Podcast. Eschewing? Hey, anyway, this show is different because we got some things that I think I meant to talk about I just did. I'm slightly confused at the beginning of the show. But one thing I want to tell you about, which is something you should know, Downton Abbey this season has some surprising bits. Mike's Daily Podcast. Yes, I don't want to spoil them for you. I've seen the entire season. Oh, it's fun to laugh at those Brits. Mike's. They get into daily all kinds of podcasts, serious, white people problems.
Oh, I don't think we've got anyone to bring the soup up to the rich people that live up above us. Oh, I hope you find someone. I'm a butler. Life sucks.
So it's a fascinating show. So, the only thing I will divulge just a bit of information. It's been talked about over and over again about how Shirley MacLaine and Paul Giamatti are going to be on the show. Yes, the Paul Giamatti impression is similar to the Harry Carey impression. How bizarre is that? So, they're in the show, right? But they don't show up till the very last episode. And then, they're damn good. They are so good. They should have been in the beginning. Yeah, but who am I? I'm no one. I do a podcast. No one listens to me. Well, like one person does. An imaginary person. I like to call him Skip. Also, I like to be thinking about Alabama lately. For some reason, I've been thinking a lot about it. I used to live there, as I probably talked about on the podcast before. I lived there 2 years, and I've been thinking a lot about it lately. I think a lot about Alabama in the winter, because there were actual seasons in Alabama. We actually got some snow, which we don't get here in Northern California, though we are much more prone to get snow here in Northern California. It has happened, I am told, like never happens in Southern California. That's total, Hollywood, Los Angeles, the no season at all. They have fire seasons. Unfortunately, they're having one right now, and earthquake seasons and mudslide seasons, but no snow. And I have been thinking a lot about the Alabama, but of course in the summer when it gets humid, that's when I'm not so much like it. If you're a huge fan of air conditioning, then Alabama is awesome during the summer because you get to try out everybody's got it blasting everywhere you go. Hey, come on over to the house. We got the air conditioning on. And then you go outside and it's all hot and steamy and you hear all the cicadas going and the bugs and the birds are chirping. Birds are really loud there and just all this cacophony of nature noise. Okay, I kind of miss it. But look who just walked in. Hello, Mike Matthews. It's Chely Shoehart, the shop supervisor. Alabama was really nice. Yeah, it had its nice parts. Oh, and you get really addicted to sweet tea there, drinking it all the time. And you try and wean yourself off the sweet tea and get back onto the less fattening regular tea that's got like no calories. But you can't. You got to go back to the sweet tea. It's just a southern thing. It envelops you, as does the diabetes. Sounds wonderful, Mike Matthews. Look who else just walked in.
Hello, Mike. This is Floyd the Floorman.
And this is John Deere the engineer, Mike. If you go back to Alabama, how will California survive?
Oh, I think they'll do just fine. They've got all kinds of... Jerry Brown has done a lot of good things here in California. I think it's going to be... The debt has gone away. The big... before I moved back to California, all I kept hearing about was the economy is in the toilet, blah, blah, blah. And now it's totally rebounded, so...
Yes, but if you leave, it'll go back into the crapper.
You don't know that.
I do know that. I can see into the future.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Well, you do that because you've rigged the last place on Earth to be a time machine, and we can go forward, backward in time. We can go sideways in time, which I never knew you could do that before, but we can do that. It's amazing, John Deere. You're brilliant.
Let's go back in time and see Downton Abbey as it really was.
Okay, let's go. All right, he's turned on the flux capacitor, and then bam, we've gone back in time. And there's lovely harp music. Ah, yes, there's Downton Abbey right there, outside of the last place on Earth. Let's go outside and check it out.
Like Matthew, I think all the girls that are in the Downton Abbey, the daughters, they're like so beautiful.
Yes, they are. Oh my God, what's that?
Hello, I'm one of the daughters here at Downton Abbey. I'm really beautiful. Look at me.
Oh my gosh, Mike Matthew, she could use a little rouge.
Rouge?
Rouge.
Why do you talk so funny?
Because I have retainers. Maybe you should try some.
Okay, we better leave before we get into a war. We kicked England's butt before, and that just was a lot of waste of tea. So, let's go back to the future, John Deere.
What? You want to leave this beautiful, magical place? I just got a job as a footman.
Oh, well, good for you.
I don't like it.
All right, let's go. Turning on the flux capacitor. I don't think that's copyrighted. There we go, back into the 21st century. Smell that wonderful air of the 21st century. So full of I can't use scientific words, but I can tell you this, that trees just love the carbon. Oh, they just inhale it. And according to designtrend.com, as trees age, they don't grow weak. Let me try that again. As trees age, they don't grow weaker. They continue to grow at an even faster rate and process carbon dioxide even better than when they were younger, according to research that just came out by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. So remember that when you go traveling, this show has to do with traveling today. If you travel somewhere where there's a lot of nice trees, I was at a really cool place yesterday, Joaquin Miller Park in Oakland. It's actually run by the city of Oakland. Beautiful area, beautiful park, so many trees, redwoods, and it's just minutes from the actual downtown of Oakland. Beautiful area, so many people hiking. I met so many nice people. I think you can have your dog off leash. I think so because I saw a lot of people with dogs off leash, and I did not get a ticket this time. But all the trails always meet. If you feel like you're getting lost, you just head down the valley, and all the trails converge down in the bottom of the valley, and then you find the street. And it's so simple. It's wonderful. So trees are not only beautiful to look at, but they have they grow like crazy throughout their lifespan, according to Nate Stevenson, a forest ecologist with the U.S. Geological Survey. Some trees in the aforementioned study grew so fast they were able to add the size equivalent of an entire other mid-sized tree within a single year. Unlike animals, trees apparently never become weaker nor suffer the ill effects of old age. So remember that next time someone tells you, oh, that's an old tree, it needs to be cut down. Instead, only external factors such as diseases, infestation, or fire can destroy a tree. They used to think that because when they measured the carbon, the amount of carbon that the trees were breathing when they were younger was a lot more than when they were older. They thought that as the trees got older, they were having a harder time breathing. But apparently that's not true. They're just becoming more efficient the older they get. About 50% of a tree's wood is carbon, so rapidly growing large old trees can remove huge amounts of carbon from the atmosphere through an enormous photosynthetic flux, far more than a younger, smaller tree can. However, older trees' leaves process carbon dioxide less efficiently, but this is relieved by its much larger canopy and leaf area.
Mike, that's why I hate trees. The older they get, the more leaves they throw on the ground that I have to pick up because I'm Floyd the Floorman.
You're Floyd the Floorman?
Floyd the Floorman.
That's true, you are. Well, what do you think about this amazing discovery about trees? Will you never look at a tree again? I think that I shall never see a tree the same way again. Is that how that poem goes? Email me, mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. Also, email me there if you'd like to be a guest on the show or if you'd like to sponsor the show, mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. And your comments we read on the section emails from email, mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. Check out the website, mikesdailypodcast.com, a fantastic place where I have my daily blog and podcast picture. And there's, of course, the podcast players that you can listen to the show on. There's also links to where to find us on iTunes, and you can subscribe to us in iTunes and rate and rank the show there. More people find out about us if you do that. There's also a link to where to find us on Facebook. Yes, the Facebook page. And like this show on Facebook, when I post a new show, share that with your friends so that more people find out about Mike's Daily Podcast. Also at mikesdailypodcast.com, where to find us on Twitter, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Stitcher, Yelp, YouTube, and yes, there is the Amazon deal of the day. Click on that, buy something at a tremendous deal, and that also helps support the show. All at mikesdailypodcast.com.
The MIKELOPEDIA INSANICA.
And now it's time to open up the fantastic book. It's a book of wonder. It's the MIKELOPEDIA INSANICA. All kinds of fascinating facts in this book. And we open it up and we get to travel. This is the topic of travel. And we begin with London. London, jewelry pieces of ships, medieval ice skates, centuries-old skulls, and other fascinating pieces of London's history aren't in museums but underground. More often than not, they stay there, but work on a new railway line under London is bringing centuries of that buried history to light. This according to Union Jack newspaper. They say the 73-mile Crossrail line is Britain's biggest construction project and the largest archaeological dig in London for decades. In the city's busy business core, archaeologists have struck pay dirt, uncovering everything from a chunk of Roman road to dozens of 2,000-year-old horseshoes, some golden 16th century bling, and the bones of long-dead Londoners. They found everything from reindeer, bison, mammoth bones dating back 68,000 years to the remains of a moated Tudor manor house, medieval ice skates, an 800-year-old piece of a ship, and the foundation of an 18th century shipyard. They've also unearthed skeletons belonging to victims of the Black Death, the plague that wiped out half of London's population in 1348. Union Jack says the latest discoveries include pieces of flint, some shaped into tiny blades, from a 9,000-year-old tool-making factory beside the Thames River in what is now southeast London. It's evidence the area was being settled after the last Ice Age by nomadic hunter-gatherers. And so many horseshoes have been found that researchers suspect that this must then, as now, have been a busy transit area, with horses bringing produce from the countryside to residents of what was then known as Londinium. Roman horseshoes stuck in a rut of the Roman road. You've got this unique little snapshot. You can see a Roman pulling his cart across the bridge. That's a rare little glimpse into ordinary Roman life. Some of the archaeologists' most delicate work involves remains from the Bedlam burial ground established in the 16th century underneath what is now Liverpool Street as the city's medieval church graveyards filled up. Thousands of Londoners were buried there over 150 years, from paupers to religious nonconformists to patients at the adjacent Bedlam Hospital, the world's first psychiatric asylum. The name is actually a corruption of the word Bethlehem, and of course it became a synonym for chaos. In just a few short years, Uber, along with its fellow app-based so-called ride-share companies, have eviscerated the taxi industry in San Francisco. The ascendant population of San Francisco has rapidly modified its migratory behavior. Those exiting bars and clubs are now want to look down and punch on a smartphone rather than look up and hail a cab, according to sfweekly.com. Now, this is a bad thing for the taxi, the system that managed to compound eons of corruption, inefficiency, cronyism, and caked-on sleaziness with a stultifying layer of overarching regulation. The rideshare companies are taking advantage of the taxi companies, and everything is fine until something goes wrong, and then you're on your own if you're with a rideshare company. Uber and other companies adamantly disavow responsibility for mishaps like that. Uber does not require seatbelts and cameras in their cars, and they said that they don't feel comfortable talking about that on record. They don't want to play that game, and they go to great lengths to ensure the safe, stylish, and convenient experience in their cars. But the company raked in nearly $210 million in 2013, nearly 70% more than industry insiders optimistically predicted. The interesting thing is the name rideshare. The name used to mean the grab a spot in my car when I'm going to LA public service that were often seen on community boards at colleges. The rideshare company of today, however, is a high-tech platform that connects riders and drivers floating in an ethereal realm above the legal and regulatory fray, according to Joe Eskenazi of SanFranciscoWeekly.com. Parking lots. The worst part about parking in cities is actually finding a place to park. New York company Automotion has eliminated the hunt. Its automated parking garage system, no searching, no attendance, is already in use at 3 smaller New York locations, parking more than 350,000 cars with 0 errors, according to fastcompany.com. It plans to open a 700 space car lot under a public park in Brooklyn in 2016, which will house 250,000 cars a year. And because the cars idle less, lots of gas is saved. This is how it works. Drivers enter a ramp into a below-ground drop-off area. Then, no need to cruise around in circles looking for a free space. Drivers pull into one of 12 designated drop-off rooms, and a flat-screen TV guides them to position the car on a steel pallet. Then, drivers leave their cars, paying with a credit card at a nearby kiosk. Motion sensors ensure no one is in the drop-off room or car before the car is pushed onto the lift and lowered into the garage. A hydraulic lift system then moves the car to its computer-assigned space. The car travels on pallets, never touching another person or car. When close to capacity, pallets are linked together, moving multiple cars at once to make use of open space. And this is fascinating. According to fastcompany.com, it takes an average of 45 seconds to place each car in its designated spot and about 2 minutes each to retrieve them. Boy, that is fast.
Dear God, sorry to disturb you, but I feel that I should be loud and clear. We all need a big reduction in amount of tea.
And our last topic about travel and traveling places. If you traveled to Chicago over Christmas and went to the Daley Plaza, you probably saw something fascinating. Long home to privately maintained Christmas and Hanukkah displays, there was a giant red letter A representing the atheist and agnostic community, according to the Press Democrat. Nestled between a baby Jesus and his manger and a towering menorah with 7 candles illuminated, the 8.5-foot tall letter and accompanying signs erected for the first time last year were meant as a counterweight to the religious displays, according to an official from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, or the FFRF. the organization responsible for the exhibit. That sounds like a dog, doesn't it? FFRF. They said the month of December does not just belong to religion or Christianity. They said we're made to feel like outsiders in our own community for at least a month every year when Daley Plaza becomes a nod to a religious holy day. Next to the large A, signs explained atheism and agnosticism and wish downtown pedestrians a happy winter solstice. Rather than wise men kneeling beside Jesus' crib, the banner included a tongue-in-cheek depiction of America's founding fathers standing around a crib that contains the Bill of Rights, according to the Press Democrat.
I can't believe it.
As we go outside of the last place on earth where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley, California, I think Sarah McLachlan did a good remake of that song by XTC, if I may be so bold to drop that in right here.
And here's today's podcast picture.
And speaking of trees and traveling and places other than where I am, anyway, at this point here in Podcastro Valley, California, like I mentioned earlier, I was thinking back to Alabama and the wonder that is encapsulated there. And this was all inspired by this picture that you see, the podcast picture. I will say this, unfortunately, Alabama does not have, it seems, quite as many trails as here. Here in the East Bay, you can throw a rock and hit about 5,000 or 6,000 different trails. All right, I might be exaggerating a little bit, but there are a bunch of trails at East Bay Regional Park District, whom I'm angry about the dog walking citation, but I still love them for all the trails that they have created, as well as a lot of the local places like the Hayward Regional Recreational Department. I think it's HARD is what they're called. They have a bunch of parks, and HARD, how does that come out to HARD? Hayward Area Recreation and Park District. So yeah, we're crazy with parks and trails here in this area. But get out, wherever you have a trail near you, get out and walk around nature. It's so much fun. But check out that cool nature picture from Alabama there at Mike'sDailyPodcast.com.
And then, Mike Matthews, when you're walking around the trees, you can think about all the carbon that they're taking in. It's so wonderful.
It is, all that carbon.
Thinking about carbon makes me happy.
Wow, Chely, you're really tree-like. So tomorrow we will bring you the return of the segment Mike's Cassette Cubbyhole. I'm going to dig something out of my cassette cubbyhole and play it for you. Something from the past that will be fascinating. And then we will also hear from Benita, the Disgruntled Fiddle Player, and the Brewmaster.
Mike, I think I really would have made a good footman.
So you've been John Deere the Footman instead of John Deere the Engineer?
Yes, Mike. A footman is a very noble job. And you can dress up in a tuxedo every night. It's wonderful.
John Deere, you make me dress up in a tuxedo every night!
Yes, well, you're my footman.
Oh! That's so romantic! Wow, what fun activities you guys do. Chely, why are you hugging that tree?
Because the tree looked a little depressed. Also, I'm a hippie.
Cool.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!
Floyd the Floorman!